Hello, everybody. Welcome to our Young Adult Mentor video chat. We have 6 mentors who are going to be joining us tonight. Just a couple announcements before we get started. If you are discovering this chat by accident and don't know what pitchwars is, definitely go and check out our website at pitchwars.org. But a short summary is it is a mentoring organization where established writers and industry professionals mentor an aspiring writer and help them get their book ready for submission to agents. And we have an agent showcase at the end. But if you want to learn more about it, definitely go to pitch right there, pitchwars.org. Yeah. Okay. Also, if this is the first chat you're watching or you're catching this not live, you can find all of our chats at this website, bit.ly/pitchwarslive. And all the chats that we are going to do in the future are also going to be found there. So you can find them all in one easy place. Okay. And if you want to ask questions, the best way to do that is via the YouTube live comment section. And you can ask them on Twitter at pitchwars, but they're going to get to us a little bit slower because our pitchwars social media director has to then copy them to YouTube so that I can see them. So it's always best if you can do it on YouTube. And if you're watching this embedded in Tweet, if you go ahead and click through to YouTube, that's how you're going to see that chat. All right, so now I'm going to ask the mentors to introduce themselves. And we're going to start with Addie.
Hi, guys. My name is Atias Besam. I'm an Iranian writer, artist, and translator. I write speculative fiction, contemporary, and fantasy. I was a Pitchwars mentee back in 2017 with my novel, Coup de Grace. And I've initiated Iran's very first English novel writing and mentorship. And I've worked as an editorial assistant, cover artist, and art director in other countries. Last year, I had the honor to be a Pitchwars mentor, and this year I'm co-mentoring with amazing Kylie. We cannot wait to read your young adult books.
Okay.
Well, that was quick.
Hey y'all, my name is Aiden Thomas. I'm a young adult author. I do fantasy and contemporary. This is my first time participating in Pitchwars, so definitely first time being a mentor. I got my MFA in creative writing, and I have done mentoring programs and fellowships in writing centers where I helped people with their creative writing and also led like campus-wide workshops for creative writing and short fiction and long fiction. And I'm super stoked to be here.
Hey guys, I'm Kylie Shakti. So I'm going to be co-mentoring with Addie this year. My book, You're Next, is coming out next spring, summer. It's a young adult noir, kind of like Riverdale meets Fight Club kind of thing. So you can go add that on Goodreads. So like I said, I'm going to be co-mentoring with Addie this year. I too was a Pitchwars 2017 mentee. That experience was obviously pretty transformative for me. So I'm just really excited to be mentoring for the first time this year. And by day, I work as a tutor, mentor, emotional support dog kind of thing for high school students. So I spend a lot of time, helping people develop their writing. I also used to work as an editorial assistant where my job was basically to write very kind, very compassionate rejection letters. So hopefully that gives me a little bit of insight into helping our future mentee kind of navigate all the trials and tribulations of the publishing world.
All right. So I'm having a little bit of trouble seeing comments. Oh, they just showed up. Perfect. Okay. Oh, you guys are all muted. Wow. Okay. So Lee says, hello, YM mentors. I think she was testing it because we were having some trouble with the chat, but it's there now. So we have, aloha from Hawaii. All right. Cool. Okay, so first question is from Alice, which is my niece's name. Hello, if your manuscript is new adult, can you submit to 2 people in young adult and 2 people in adult based on their wish list? That is a question for our tech director, who is probably asleep right now because she's in the Philippines. So I'm sorry, but we're going to have to get back to you on that one because I can't remember. I think we usually limit it to, you have to choose either young adult or adult, but I can't. I forgot. Sorry, that was last year. Yeah, we will definitely get back to you. And I think if Lee or somebody could look it up and let me know, we'll announce that. Okay, that's the only question we have so far. Cal is back. Cal was here with us yesterday. So hello, welcome back. Ricky asked us yesterday, will the wish list be available before the 11th? And the answer is still no, definitely not. If anyone puts their wish list up before the 11th, I will have a talk with them. About the question about new adult, oh, sorry. Lee said she's gonna tweet about it in a minute. So make sure you look at the Twitter for that answer. All right. So we have a question finally. What advice would you give to someone who has no education or experience to better your writing? So I'm just going to turn over our mentors. Whoever wants to answer, jump in.
Go for it, Addie.
Okay. Sorry. I would say that as someone who didn't have that kind of privilege, I call it privilege because some people don't realize it is a privilege. Like we don't, like here, we don't have like degrees in college for creative writing, which is crazy. I think reading a lot would help, and writing a lot would help. Read and write and read and write, because that's how it works. You get something in and you get something out. And try to have your education elsewhere. If you can't like really go to classes, if for any reason you can't go to classes, you can get CPs, you can get better readers, you can get one of the reasons I love pitchwars is this, that it brings the opportunity for people to get to know each other. Writers, you can help each other, and this is why this is the help that you need. Like this is the help that I need. This is the help that any writer needs, in my opinion, at least.
Yeah, I totally agree. As far as like the probably biggest thing that you can do is read as much as you can. And I'll add sort of a procedural, like strategic thing that you can do that I found, or like a technical thing that you can do that I've actually found to be really successful with some of my students, is pick a piece of writing that you really love or you admire or you think is, really technically proficient in some kind of way that you want to mirror, and actually just transcribe it, like type it out or write it out by hand. I've seen with a lot of my younger students in particular, who are often in middle school or in high school and are really just learning what the rules are of sentence construction and how like language and narrative is supposed to work together, that just getting a feel for how another writer has put that stuff together can be really powerful, even though that sounds like a really stupid, like 5 ways to better your writing tomorrow kind of technique. I've actually found it to be really useful. And likewise, the community piece that I think that Addie mentioned, like finding your CPs, your beta readers, whether that's in your local community or whether that's, online, connecting with people through social media. I think finding people who will be really honest with you about your writing is important, and then writing as much as is possible. So much of getting better at writing is writing a lot of crap, and being okay with writing trash a lot of the time. I mean, that's a lesson that I'm still learning. So being willing to write trash and then willing to let your people that you trust read your trash is probably the best way to get better.
Yeah, I definitely agree on reading a lot, especially in the genre and age range that you're interested in. That's going to be like the most beneficial. And you absolutely do not need a formal education in order to be a successful writer. That's just simply statistically untrue. Just not legit. But if you're like new to like the whole writing game, finding that community is really important. Pitchwars is going to be a great way of doing that. Some other NaNoWriMo, so the National Novel Writing Month, is also another really amazing way of doing that, because you can get in your region, they're going to have like sit-ins and write-ins, and you can make those connections either virtually or like actually like going in person to a cafe and doing a write-in and like meeting folks and sharing your writing. That's a huge asset. There's also a lot of online resources. Personally, I am obsessed and constantly talk about Jessica Brody on Twitter. she put out a book, and she also has really affordable Udemy.com courses. And her book is Save the Cat Writes a Novel. And it really, structurally speaking, it's going to help you kind of plot out a story. And that's something that I found recently. And like, I have an MFA in creative writing, and that course taught me things that I was like never taught in my formal education. And it was super, super helpful. So I highly recommend like going out and finding resources and using either online courses, and they're like $12 through Udemy, or books even are really, really helpful.
I still recommend not just sticking to books, like any sort of a story. Here I go again.
Yeah.
But really, any sort of a story that you can get your hands on, I think in any media, it would be helpful, because you can see different writers working in different aspects of a story, like visual, even, and it helps because you can see different views to one story. Like you read something and then you watch a movie, and then I don't know, you play a game, and then you whatever, anything that features the stories can help you, I think, because it broadens your mind about the concept of having a fictional world and fictional characters fleshed out for others to see. It's really helpful.
Yeah, and someone just mentioned to me Wednesday night at the library that I work at, that they were taking an online course. I can't remember where it was from. It was from a major university, but for free. A lot of universities are offering courses online for free now. So, yeah, Google that.
Yeah.
Awesome.
As far as resources go, I forgot about this while I was talking, but Writing Excuses, the podcast, is also really, really great. They're 15 minutes long, so like you can go on a walk and listen to one, and they get into the real nitty gritty of like technically how you put a certain kind of scene together, or you write within a certain kind of genre, or achieve a certain kind of effect. So that can be really useful as well.
All right. Michelle has a question for us. Hello, everyone. I have a 16-year-old protagonist that drops F-bombs, as well as some of the adults around her. Is that a problem? How much swearing is too much swearing?
I have a couple fucks, I think, on the first page of my book. And like several other swears as well. So I think I did a word search recently, and I was averaging about 1 every 10 pages, and I'm being published through a Big 5 publisher coming out next year. So I think the conventional wisdom I've heard is like it might vary a little bit from one publisher to a next, but like my perspective on it is that real teenagers swear, and if that makes sense for the character, then that makes sense for the character. I think maybe consider where other language might be more appropriate, like in order to convey the idea that you're trying to convey, not because it's like the right or good thing for the kid to be or the character to be saying. But I think that people tend to be a little bit more tolerant of that kind of thing these days. But
yeah,
other people might disagree.
Yeah,
no, I totally agree.
I think, yeah.
Let's do Aiden first.
Yeah, I totally agree. And also, when it comes down to it, having too much swearing in your book is not going to be something that turns away an author or an agent, because that can be fixed in copy edits and editing. So I wouldn't let yourself get hung up on that too much.
Yeah, and also times have changed. Like, if you read like young adults from like 10 years ago, it's so different. Like now, right, young adults have become so dark also, and there's like a lot of swearing in it. It's like, I think it's more natural now. Like Kyla said, like teenagers swear. We can't like censor everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, guarantee you they're not learning from your book. That's not the first time that like a teen reader has seen a swear word or heard a swear word before. Sorry, I don't know who I just cut off. Go ahead.
That's fine.
Yeah.
The one thing to consider, though, is if you want to get on the school lists and the school library lists and stuff like that, they won't put your book on it if it has a lot of swearing in it. And so if that's something that you want, then you're going to have to decide what you want to do there. All right. I work at a library, so.
That's good.
Yeah. All right. Carly has a question for us. What is your take on word count? Is 100K plus, she doesn't define plus, a strict no when it comes to YA science fiction fantasy?
I mean, I'll go ahead and talk about my experience. So my first book is coming out in, I don't know what I'm allowed to say, summer 2020, let's say. And it is a fantasy novel. And it started at, I think the first draft was like 75K. And then it went up to 93K. And then my editor was like, oh, we should probably keep it at like 85 to 90 if you can cut some words. And I was like, cool. Then the next draft was 104K, and that's what's going to copy it. So as long as you're keeping it like within reason, there's going to be so much change and kind of wiggle room in what happens. Always check if you're querying for an agent, always check and see if on their website, if they have like kind of strict guidelines, and then kind of try to follow that. But when it comes down to it, I don't think that like, I mean, personally, I don't think that 10K is outside of like what's required or like what the guideline is would be too big of an issue. And again, your agent's going to know what's best when you get an agent, and they'll be able to help you cut it down. They're going to be able to read through it and make suggestions, and kind of, especially for authors, I think it's really hard to write a lot and then have to cut it back because you're like, but every scene is important. But your agent will have a better understanding. They'll be able to like look at it with fresh eyes and be like, okay, well, if we tighten it up here, 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 and here, we can shorten it that way if they're worried about the word count.
Yeah, I can't speak super clearly to the science fiction and fantasy thing, 'cause my book is a young adult contemporary, but I feel like that was a thing that I was being told a lot when I was trying to get an agent, is that it was harder for agents to take on things that were way over word count because they're trying to think, they know that they're going to have to make changes to the book, and they're trying to think about what's ultimately going to be sellable. But I agree with Aiden that like a little bit one way or another is probably not where your issue lies. If you're on the like Sarah J. Maas train of like 600,000 words for a young adult fantasy, then I think probably you want to think about like what actually needs to be said in this story. But I think a little bit of wiggle room on either side of that is not like a hard no.
Yeah, I sort of agree with everyone here, but you have to also realize that when we write something, of course, we love it, so we just don't want to cut anything. But usually I suggest putting the book aside for a short amount of time so you can go back to it and see what you can cut down. Because when you're done with a book, you just love it so much, you don't want to touch it. I say this because most of the times when there are too many words, then I'm not saying that it's a bad thing, but most of the time a lot of things can be cut down, because it's not about just anything that you love has to be in the book. It's about how it works. If the book works without, I don't know, a certain scene, a certain character, and no matter how much you love that scene, that character, those words, you have to cut it down, because it's, as they say, kill your darlings. You have to cut it to make it better. So, and I also suggest my students always, they feel bad about especially cutting on a character. I always tell them that you have to like keep them like in a notebook or something, and then use them for another story, so they don't feel like I'm suggesting killing one of their characters, of like erasing them from the book. They love him. They don't want to do that. So I suggest doing that. And some writers have actually done that, and it worked. Like they had cut a character from a book and put it in another book, and it worked pretty well. So don't be afraid of doing that also.
I'll add too that I have had to cut like minimum 20,000 words from every draft I've ever had to write. I'm like a chronic overwriter. So if you are in like a drafting phase and that's your process, is you have to get every single thought that passes through your head down on the page. Otherwise it'll just like vanish into the ether. Like I have to write every single thing I think about a story, and then go through with like the scalpel and pick out what actually has to be there and what doesn't need to be there. So I think like a lot of this advice is really good when you're editing, but maybe different people work in different ways, but I think some people can feel the burden of having to edit something while they're still in the drafting phase, and it might be more helpful to keep those two things separate.
I'm glad you mentioned Sarah J. Maas, because I feel like a lot of people will see those books and books like those, and they'll be like, well, they did it, why can't I? But the thing with the authors like that is they've already proven that people will buy their books, so they're given a little more leeway. All right, Shelley asks, what's the difference between a manuscript that's ready for pitch wars versus a manuscript that's ready for PitMad? Is there a difference? And real quick, for those watching, if you don't know the difference between pitch wars and PitMad, PitMad is a Twitter pitch event where you tweet out your pitch, and agents and editors will like it to request it be sent to them. Whereas pitchwars is a mentoring organization where you submit to mentors and they choose one writer to do a full manuscript edit with. So those are the difference between the two contests, and I'm going to let the mentors answer the question.
I think that theoretically, maybe not such a huge difference between the two, but I think like ultimately what you're getting out of pitch wars is this full edit and mentoring experience that you're not going to get out of PitMad. And so one way of looking at that is that your manuscript potentially needs a bit more work or needs more of a structural or developmental edit before it's ready to be seen by agents if you're looking at pitch wars versus PitMad. So I'll talk a little bit about my experience because I've been on kind of both ends of it. So when I applied to the 2017 pitch wars, to be 2017 pitch wars mentee, I had queried a little bit with my manuscript and gotten basically no response from agents. And so I was like, okay, I can tell there's something wrong with this book. I cannot figure out how to fix it anymore. So I need some help. And so I applied to pitch wars and went through that whole process. I did okay in the agent round, but didn't get like a huge number of requests. So I did the following PitMad that was like a month later, I think. And that's where I got some requests from the agents who ultimately ended up offering on the book. So, but that never would have happened if I hadn't gone through that mentoring experience where we were able to totally basically rip my book apart and put it back together again. The book that the agents offered on was the book that I made out of pitch wars because it wasn't really ready for agents yet because it wasn't the story that it needed to be yet. So I think like, and maybe somebody else can speak to this differently, but I think probably like either, you can probably participate in either one, but PitMad, you don't get that editing experience. And so your book, in order to have the success that you want to have with agents, your book kind of needs to be in a more finished, ready to be seen state. Trying not to speak in absolutes here, because obviously everybody's experience is different.
Oh, I'm going to add something to what Kyle said. And because last year when I was mentoring pitch wars, somebody sent me a manuscript that she had queried about 70 agents with. And that's like, I told her, you know, you're burning the manuscript like this, you're burning it out, because before you start working on it again, and when you get no response, it's better to see what's going on, what's wrong, how can I fix it and everything before you just start sending out queries in bunches. Because when agents like say no to something, they really take a look at it again, at the same book. So when you say that you sent a few agents your manuscript and then you started fixing it, that's good, that's cool. But a few, like it would be a mistake to take part in pitch wars and having sent like a lot of queries, because then you would have a fixed book, but your list is like crossed out, most of it. I suggest, if you think that your manuscript might need help, which almost every author, like they need help with others, that no author writes something and it's like, oh, well, I did this miracle that doesn't need fixing or whatever. I think it's better not to query a lot of people before doing that. You can test it out and see what's going on if you want to like go with PitMad or pitch wars. And also I like PitMad in this way that if you really feel, and you, not just you, because we love our books, but if a lot of people tell you that your manuscript, a lot of experts tell you that your manuscript is ready, like your CPs are like, this is good, it doesn't need a lot of work and all. It's ready for querying. Yeah, so Pitman it's a great way of like jumping up a few steps to the agents and the publishers. But if you feel like you don't know what to do with something to make it better, like you did everything you could to make this manuscript great, but you feel there's something missing, or your CPs tell you there's something missing, your better it is, people tell you that, it's great, it's a great idea, but I don't know, pacing is off, whatever, then pitchwars is a great way for you to improve your manuscript, because somebody will look at it differently and help you through it. And my experience with pitchwars was just amazing, because I struggle with the beginning of the stories, and my mentors basically just dragged the beginning like only a few hours before the story started, and everything just fell into place. It was just amazing, and I couldn't see that before. So getting that experience, it's very important. But if you feel like your manuscript is totally ready and people tell you so, experts, again, not people who love your works anyway, like people who are like your beta readers and your CPs, and they know what they're talking about when it comes to stories, I think that would be great for Pitman.
Anybody else? Okay. I did want to add one thing. If I saw someone talking about this, I think yesterday, if you are convinced that your book is like 100% ready to go and there's nothing that needs to be changed and it's perfect, then pitchwars probably isn't the best for you, because if you're like resistant to changing it at all, that's, what are you going to do for the 3 months that you're supposed to be editing your book? So, all right, we have a question here. What is the best tool or process you use when editing? No one wants to go. No one's even unmuting their mics. They're just like, nope, I don't want to go.
I
just go with words, that's all.
I swear to God, I relearn how to edit every time I sit down to edit. Like I couldn't even, I think I know what my process is every time, and then I'm wrong about it every time. But I do think that it depends a little bit on what you're trying to edit in each phase of the process. So at different parts in the process of editing my book, I've been editing the plot, like the sort of a story, what's happening in each scene, versus I've been going in and adding like emotional texture and richness. And those I think require kind of different techniques. I'll say for like plotting structural editing, the big sort of game changer for me was using index cards and putting them down on the floor so that I could see the big picture. I had like one scene written on every card, and I could rearrange them and move them around and see kind of logically how one person's actions led to the other, especially because I was writing mystery and there were a lot of different people doing different things that were affecting the plot. I think when it comes to emotional, textural type stuff, and I will say again, I think Aiden mentioned Save the Cat Writes a Novel. I like learned about 3-act structure when I was doing Pitchwars 2017. I don't know how I had made it this far in my writing career without knowing what that is. But it, like, as somebody who plotting like does not come naturally to, I think that it was like a gift from the gods that somebody had handed me this like structure and formula that I could just plug things into. It was like one less thing to worry about. So highly recommend that as well. For like emotional textural stuff, I go through every single scene and write out where every single character or all the like main players' emotions are at the beginning, the middle, and the end of the scene, and how they're changed, and then how that segues into the next scene. It's a lot of work to do, but I need to be able to see how those emotional threads are happening throughout the book so that I can make sure we're actually having a character arc and not just kind of like doing things and not changing at all.
Yeah, I totally agree. I'm also fairly new to the 3-act structure, which is really important. When I'm a hardcore plotter, just to put that out there into the universe, full disclosure. For me, what's really helpful is to do editing in layers, to not try to do everything at once. I'm not going to try to like make sure all of my plot points are on point, that my dialogue is like clever and catchy, and that there's the emotional resonance that needs to happen at the same time, because I will just drive myself cuckoo bananas. So I usually start with the bigger stuff, like the bigger plot stuff, And again, Jessica Brody, she has free, on her website, she has free resources, and one of them is the 15 beat sheet. And that you can actually use as a step-to-step kind of fill-in guide to make sure that you're kind of hitting all those important plot points. And what I do, or what I did most recently, was that my first draft was already written because I learned about it afterwards. And I took the beat sheet and I went down and I filled all of them in. And if there was one of the 15 steps that I couldn't fill in, then I was like, okay, that's something I need to go back in and change. So you can use it as a guide. You don't have to necessarily follow it, but it can help you find those major holes and help you figure out how to fill said holes. Another thing that I do is I keep a random doc that I'll dump like scene ideas into, or even just like lines of dialogue while I'm going through a draft, and then I can reference that sheet and kind of go back during edits and kind of plug them in where I can find them to fit.
You guys mentioned Jessica Brody like a lot of times, and you're right, it's just the greatest thing ever. Another course that really helped me with plotting and with editing when I was like stuck somewhere is Michael Hawke and Chris Vogler's. They have a plotting course. It's for the movies, but it's in general for any stories that they have like percentages. Like at 10%, this has to happen, and it suits very well with Jessica Brody's course. Like you can put them together. It's like a broader look, and then Jessica Brody like breaks it down little by little. So these are like, for me, they were like really they really completed each other, these two courses. I was like, oh, okay, I get it now. Some things I got from the first one, some things I got from the second one. And for editing, it's very helpful because when you get stuck somewhere, I plot and I improvise as I write. I'm also a pantser, so when I have somewhere that I can't really figure out what I do with it, I just tell myself, okay, I'll figure it out when I'm writing. It's okay. But the big plot points and the turning points, I have to figure out before I start writing, because I get stuck. I know I get stuck and I feel miserable then. So I have to know what I'm gonna do. And one of the things that I do is to write the scenes, or like the little things happening, anything that I know it happens in the book. Like it might be a dialogue, it might be a big thing, it might be a small thing. I write it down on small pieces of paper, and I make a timeline, which was really helpful. I said, okay, for July, this happens, this happens, this happens. And sometimes it helps me also like do some foreshadowing or paralleling, doing something like this. And I actually have one of them here for my new book. It's like right there. See? So it helps with editing and it helps with plotting before you start writing. So, nobody can give you a specific, just you can do this and then just this one thing, everyone did it. We can't tell you that, because we can tell you whatever experience we have. Because if we tell you that and then you can't get something out of it, and you will feel bad and you feel there's something wrong and they did it, I didn't do it, how come it helped them and it didn't help me, there's something wrong. It's not about that. And sometimes I get stuck with all of these also. So I sit down and listen to different soundtracks from like movies, series, I don't know, it's just music to kick in, like then to see what I'm going to do about the scene or this character, or how can I like edit this one and take it out without like hurting the story and everything. So just give yourself some time and try out everything to see what works for you.
Yeah, I when I write young adult, I am a pantser, like hardcore pantser. So if I fast draft a book, one of the first things I do is I plug in my plot points into the beat sheet and see if my pacing is on point. But when I write romance, I use the beat sheet as a plot device, so I don't do that then. So we're a little over halfway through, so I just want to say a couple of things. Joining us at 9 o'clock Eastern is going to be Jeff Bishop, Brenda Drake, and Rebecca Coffindaffer. I think that's how you say that. she's Call Me Bex. That's what everyone calls her. Call Me Bex. And also, it looks like last year, if you were submitting New Adult, you could submit to anyone who was accepting New Adult. So I assume it will be the same this year. So we finally got that question answered. We are currently looking at what's going on.
Look, I took New Adult last year. I'm not taking it this year. So
Okay.
a little note. Yeah.
You're not allowed to say that. Yeah, so the mentors at this point are not allowed to talk about their wish lists in any way. So I'm like the wish list police. But we are answering questions from 8:10 p.m. Just a heads up to give you where we are at. But just like last night, I think a lot of the questions came in the first 10 minutes. And so I think we will probably catch up by the end of it. But if not, make sure you tune in the future and get that question in early. Or there's also Twitter chats that are going to be happening. So check those out. I will, whenever we transition the mentors, I will show the schedule for all the chats. So you'll be able to see that at 9 o'clock. All right. So we have another question from Jennifer. What kind of research do you do to better connect with your young adult audience? No one?
I feel like I keep jumping in first. I was trying to like give
Go for it.
I work with high school students, so my research is sort of built in. But I think that I'm also like a 16-year-old at heart. But also I think that going to this as this is coming out of my mouth, this sounds creepy, but going to the spaces where like kids actually hang out on the internet. So finding like the social media channels that make sense for like whatever the youth are doing these days and listening in. It's now defunct and it's probably coming down soon, but Rookie Mag used to be like a phenomenal resource for actually hearing from teen writers and what they care about. They shut down last year. There's an archive version on their site now. So you can still access some of that. I don't know how much longer that's going to be there. And then I would say also Teen Vogue has good kind of insight into what like the youth TM care about these days as well. But I think probably like the best thing that you can do in the most non-creepy way possible is like connect with the actual young people in your life. And I think that like talking to them like they're a human being and not either A, a child, or B, some kind of like lab rat that you're studying with a clipboard, and like having an honest and compassionate conversation with them about like what they care about, what they think about the world around them. That has been like why I've found success and happiness like tutoring and mentoring young people, but also why I write YA is because like those kids inspire me so much. But it's because we talk to each other like we're like human to human instead of like adult to child, as much as is possible. Obviously there's power dynamic.
Yeah, I do a lot of volunteering kind of outreach in my community, specifically within the queer community. And that kind of opens up a lot of space to kind of hear about teens' experiences, which is really important, just kind of listening, I guess, to start with and connecting with them, which has been really great. And a lot of them actually influenced Cemetery Boys, which is a paranormal fantasy about a trans boy brujo who can summon spirits, and he accidentally summons the wrong one and then he can't get rid of him, is kind of the plot. But it's very much about a brown boy living in LA in a really like marginalized community, and his experience of being trans and trying to deal with his own identity. And in order to kind of learn about that, even though it aligns pretty closely with my own experience, you kind of have to like get out there and like make connections and doing volunteering and kind of reaching out into your community. It's so gratifying and fulfilling for me anyways. Another, I think, really easy way of doing it is connecting to teen book bloggers, like teen readers who run their own book blogs or who do video vlogging like on YouTube. They're like some of the coolest people out there, like to begin with. But then you're learning about are hearing from a teen who reads and what kind of books that they like and why that they like them. And that's like an automatic funnel to kind of for your creativity and like what teens are looking for and what they enjoy and what they connect to. So, and not only that, but you're supporting bloggers who are like, as a writer, they're the ones who are gonna like be there supporting you and who are gonna do so much footwork for you when they like fall in love with your writing that like, you know, that's who you should be connecting to. They're right there. They're a resource for you. You should be supporting them because they're going to be supporting you.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to say about the blogging because it really helps. Also, I think we should ask people why they like something, even if you don't like it. And a lot of times I see that, especially when it comes to teenagers, people, when they don't like something that the teenager likes, they just start bashing it without like really hearing the reason why they like it, and just line up the reasons why they shouldn't really like it. I think even if we don't like something, we should really research and see why and what is the thing that the teenagers saw in that thing, and try to understand it. And trying to understand means communicating, and communication means talking to them, not just assuming what they think and assuming how they speak and assuming like their way of life. And also, there's a fine line between when writing young adult, the thing that really I struggle with, and I'm getting better at this, but as time goes on. But the thing that really I struggle with is that by wanting my characters to be special, sometimes I made them older, their voices, the way they saw everything, and they weren't teenagers anymore. And whenever I got the feedback that but your character doesn't sound like a teenager, I got really like, no, but my character is so special that and everything. But the truth is that if I give it to a teenager and let them read and say, do you think that this person sounds like someone your age, and hear what they say, it's much more helpful than anything else for me. Because they would say, even though they're very wise, they're older, their mind's older than the age and whatever, but this way of speech, we don't use that word. We don't do this really. This is not the way we describe things. And this is not these are not the things that we care about, or those are the things that we care about, and you just dismiss them. And you're like, they're not important and everything. So research is not just about like typing on our computer. It's about talking to actual teenagers, especially you talked about the queer people. Like in my country, we can't really, like, nobody can be openly queer. So that's a problem. So we have to like find our way into the community little by little. They have to trust you to talk to you, like to let you know that they're actually queer, because they can't tell you, it would be illegal. So that's another problem. I don't think anyone in the chat really would. You said the word queer, and I was like, it would. I have problems with that, because sometimes I have to go and find someone literally and tell them, you can trust me, please trust me, and everything, so I can talk to them. So it's not going to be really easy sometimes, but you want to write a book that actually represents actual teenagers, you have to do your research, and these are the hard work that you have to do.
I did one thing that we didn't mention, and it was after I published the book though, so I think it might be easier if you're already published. But the book I'm working on right now, the girl does robotics competitions in high school. And even though my degree is in mechanical engineering, I didn't do robotics in high school. So I'm very comfortable with like the technical aspect, but I wanted a little more insight into like the team dynamic aspect. And so I actually found someone who is a robotics coach at a local high school, and they let me come and hang out at one of the meetings and ask questions. And I gave away a couple books too. So if that's available to you, that would be a good thing to do too. All right, we have a question from Amanda. My main villain is an adult, and there are a few chapters that are in their perspective. The story is in third person. Would you find this alienating to young adult audiences or a potential for crossover?
I can talk about my experience. I'm going to try and do this without offering any spoilers for my book. So when I was applying to pitchwars in 2017, the main villain, and I read murder mystery, so the murderer, it was an adult. And one of the primary pieces of feedback that I got from my mentor, and one of the major changes that we ended up incorporating into the book, is that and this is very specific to the way that my story was structured, so please don't take this as a blanket rule, but by making the main villain an adult, it took my main character, who's a high school student, outside of her high school world and relating to other teenagers and other high school students, and put her into this adult world where she ended up spending a lot of time in the novel being essentially like the lone teenager in a world of adults. And that was potentially going to be alienating to a young adult audience. I don't think that that's a hard and fast rule. I'm struggling to think of a name of titles right now, but I'm almost positive I know for sure I've read YA books that have an adult as the villain. I'm almost positive I've read ones where the adult had a POV. So I think you have to really think about how that fits into what kind of story you're trying to tell. I think young adult books do ultimately want to deal with the like YA themes of identity, figuring out who you are in the context of your broader community, which is usually your high school, and then your smaller community, which is your family. What does it do to have an adult villain be the primary antagonist? I think there are ways that can help drive that, where having an adult villain becomes part of the way that the character finds themselves in other teen communities, or finds a different aspect of their teen identity. But I can also see ways that potentially draws away from that, which was the case in my book. I don't know so much about the crossover thing. It's hard to really speak to that without knowing a whole lot about like the specific book that we're talking about. But I don't know that, at least, and this is my very non-expert opinion, but I think that what makes a good crossover, why certain young adult books have had success with crossover, is not because there's like adult stuff that adults can connect to. It's because adults are looking for fast-paced, like action-packed, or like fast, not necessarily action-packed, but fast-paced, emotion-driven stories that are not always as prevalent in the adult market as they are in the young adult market. I don't think it's as much about having an adult character that they feel that they can relate to or connect with. So I would be a little bit more skeptical about the crossover piece, but without knowing the specifics of the story, it's hard to say for sure.
Yeah, I really agree with that, Kylie, about the crossover. Yeah. Anybody else? It's fine if you don't.
No, it's okay. I think what you have to think about is who's the story you want to tell. Like, this is young adult, you want to tell the story of a teenager, and why is it so important to have an adult's point of view in your story? When we're talking about point of view, you shouldn't just think about where the story happens, I want an eye. You should think about whose idea of this story is important for the audience, whose experience is important for the audience. So POVs are not just like, narrators are not just for narrating and just telling us what's happening in the book. It's about what they think about this story happening. It's about how they relate to the story. It's about their experience. It's about their character. And think about it. You're having an adult person's point of view, experience, and everything for a young adult person who's reading your book. And if you want that, that's okay. Like, if you want that, if it's important for you, for a young adult person to understand this point of view, yes. But if you're just doing this for the eye, just because the main character is not there, I want to tell everyone what's going on there, that's not really a good reason for having another POV whatsoever, not just here. Like, I always tell everyone, like, the person who's narrating the story, the main character, POV person, whatever, they have to have a reason for telling this story, and they shouldn't just be a pair of eyes describing everything. And it might be really hard to put those away or to put them somewhere else, so you main character can describe what's going on instead. But having that the only for as the only reason you're doing this, that's not really okay. I think you should think about the experience of an adult inside a young adult book.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with what everyone else is saying. I don't think that there's any problem with having an adult be your antagonist. But I'm trying to think of, I feel like all of the books, the YA books that I can think of where there's an adult POV, it's by authors who are very well established and can pretty much do whatever they feel like at this point. Like Maggie Stiefvater, for example. So I think that's going to be tricky. And just to echo what everyone else said, I think you need to think about your intentionality and what the purpose is serving of having that adult point of view, and really kind of break down and consider if that's something you really want to hang on to. And yeah, just to think about it.
Yeah. It's just a personal preference, but like I've never read a book where there were scenes from the antagonist POV that I felt added to the story. Even when in the few times I've seen it in published books, but I think I don't know, that just might be me. So we have one more question. I'm going to ask one more question because we're getting close to 9 o'clock. And Rebecca and Jeff, I do see you guys waiting in the wings. So just wanted to let you know that I see you. Okay, so Amber, we actually have two questions that are very, very, very similar. They're asked back to back. So I'm just going to go ahead and put both of them up. What are some general things that you look for in a submission? What are things that you wouldn't want to see? And then Angelina asks, what kind of things will turn you off in the manuscript? So they're essentially the same question there. So go for it.
I think things I want to see, I don't know if I want to talk about things I don't want to see because like it's kind of complicated. But things that I really enjoy, especially in like a first page, is I want to know the stakes. I want to be kind of dropped into the action. And a voice is always really, really important for me. If I think that the voice is really fun, then I can like go a bit longer waiting to find out everything else that's going on if the voice is really strong. Yeah.
Yeah, hard agree on the voice thing. I think, first of all, because like Aiden said, if the voice is great and really grabby and I want to kind of like live in this person's mind, then I'm willing to kind of like wait and see and figure things out as I go. Especially if, I mean, since we're thinking about this in the context of having like the first pages in the query, especially if the query is something that is kind of higher concept and I know is going to take me some time to figure out like what the world is like, then a voice can do a lot to kind of keep my attention going and be willing to sort of see what happens. I think another piece of that too is viewing this through the context of being a mentor, and I think some people last night spoke to this as well, but voice is one of the harder things to fix for somebody else. And so it's just like a really difficult thing to explain, like, here's how you make your voice better or more attention grabbing or whatever. And so when the voice is really great to begin with, then we can think about how we change some of the stuff that we can work together on a little bit more. So those are probably the first things that I look for, or the first thing I look for probably would be voice. And then likewise, yeah, stakes, but also like, this is a more technical thing, but just feeling like I'm grounded in space and time in the first few pages, especially when it gets into some higher concept things. Sometimes we spend a lot of time on the first few pages in somebody's thoughts or in explaining what the world looks like or something like that. And I feel like in the like literal now where the book is starting, I don't know like what the ground is that I'm standing on or what the walls are, what the ceiling is. And so it's hard for me to pay attention to what's going on what I'm being told in the first pages of the story, if I feel like I'm standing in kind of like a blank void, not really knowing what's up and what's down. So those would be some of the first things that I look for.
Everyone talked about what they like. I'm going to talk about what would turn us well. I think if you're asking for, we're not asking like the wish list is coming up. If you're asking for some things and somebody sends us something that we didn't ask for or specifically say we're not looking for, because it happened to me last year a lot. And it's such a shame because you can only pick a few mentors, and then it's such a waste because you send to someone who doesn't really want it, and you waste one of your slots for that. So that's the first thing. And like in a query, they say that like I'm looking for this, and this book is this, and I'm like, that's specifically what I put in my no list. And then because I would feel really bad, I would read, but I wouldn't really take on any of those. I would just tell them that I said that I didn't want that. But this is the first thing before even opening, like looking at the manuscript or anything, sample pages, whatever the synopsis, the first thing that you see and you're like, no, and for me is like, I didn't ask for this, and they sent me this. And but what I would love, yes, voice is really important because it's not something that we can really, nobody can really teach you how to have a voice. Really, it's just experience. It's the voice that you hear when you write. It's how you connect with your character. It's your character. We don't know your characters before you introduce them to us, and the way to do that is to use their voice. So if someone has a really, really good voice in a book, yes, that's a really good point, because then we don't have to start telling the author, you know what, you have to work on your voice, because that's not going to happen in like 3 months. And you can't change your voice in a book in like 3 months. It's a long way. So that's not it doesn't need a quick fix. It's a long time working on it. So if I feel, it's not just what I feel about a book, it's how I can help someone with it. If I feel like I can't really do anything about a book, I can't really take it on. I have to know that I can help someone with this book, that I can mentor it. So, and sometimes like I said about Pitman, sometimes the manuscript is really ready. Like I told someone last year that, you know what, you should, in my opinion, you should start querying. I read your book. I liked your book. I can't do anything about your book. You should start querying. So yeah.
All right. So I'm just going to ask each of the mentors to tell us where we can find you online, and also if you have anything coming up that you want us to know about, like a book coming out or a giveaway or anything like that. So we'll start with Addie.
So I'm everywhere, literally. I'm on Twitter at @asbessam. It's very hard for people to say hey in the middle of middle of the name. It's like Bessam. Asbessam. I'm at Instagram at @S_Bessam. You can just search my name. I'm everywhere basically. Sometimes I made pages long time ago and I just let them go, but my active pages are on Twitter, Instagram, and sometimes Facebook. I'm probably online all the time on Instagram because my students are out there too. They connect with me there. And I'm also on Telegram if you have Telegram. I don't think Telegram is very popular worldwide. I think it's popular in Iran, but if you have Telegram, I'm also on Telegram. I can give you my number so you can come to Telegram and say hi. But you can message me anytime you want.
Kylie?
So I am on Instagram and Twitter at Kylie Shakti. My last name is very German and very hard to pronounce. It's like you're in a shack drinking tea, SCHACHTE. And I mentioned this at the beginning, but my YA noir, You're Next, is coming out next year, spring, summer. So I don't have anything to show for that yet, but go ahead and add it on Goodreads for now.
And Aiden.
So I'm pretty active on Twitter. I also have Instagram. My handle everywhere is Aiden Schmaden. It's on the Pitch Wars tweets right now, so you can just follow me over there. It's a lot of me kind of giving writing advice and babbling about the writing process, giving resources, fun stuff like that. And my debut novel with Swoon Reads Macmillan is coming out in July 2020, and it's Cemetery Boys, like I mentioned earlier, fantasy, kind of urban fantasy set during Dia de los Muertos with a trans Latinx boy main character. And if you want to add that on Goodreads, that'd be great.
All right, thank y'all for joining us. I'm going to switch the screen over the schedule, and then you can close your window while we switch everyone over. All right. So while we're getting everyone added here real quick, I just want to say the last the last two chats that we had, I had said that 2.8% of people submitted last year got in, but I realized earlier today that I had misremembered the number of entries, and so it's actually much better than 2.8. It's 3.3%. Considerably better, right? Yeah, sorry. All right, so this is the upcoming schedule we have. We have a couple more video chats coming up and a whole bunch of Ask Mentor Twitter chats. The wish list will be revealed on September 11th. So all the chats after September 11th, the mentors are allowed to talk about their wish lists. But the current ones, they are not allowed to talk about their wish list. So just to give you guys a heads up, if you have any questions about wish lists, make sure you tune into the chats that are after the 11th. So waiting in the wings here, we have Rebecca and Jeff and Brenda. I'm going to ask them one by one to introduce themselves. Also, I realize, again, I didn't introduce myself at the beginning of this chat, so I'll do that real quick. Hi, I'm Sarah Nicolas. I am the managing director of Pitchwars for 2019. I was a mentor from 2012 to 2017. I was a social media director last year and now managing director. And I am a young adult author. I'm the author of Keeping Her Secret, which is a summer camp romance between two girls. So we're going to switch over to Rebecca. If you can unmute your mic, Rebecca.
Hi.
Okay. Hello.
Hi. I am Rebecca Coffindaffer. I am an upcoming debut in young adult. Next fall, 2020, I have a debut space opera coming out. It's sort of Star Wars meets Lara Croft with a wisecracking pilot going around the galaxy, getting into shenanigans.
Am I up? Can you hear me? Are we good?
We're good.
Hi, I'm Jeff. My debut is A Heavy Dose of Alice and Tandy. It comes out next year the date is up in the air, but it's from Putnam and Penguin. I was a mentee in 2017. My mentor was Alicia Clancy, whose book I'm going to quickly plug since I don't have it on my own. It's called Be My Galentine. Yeah, I'm excited. My co-mentor, who is only sort of relevant here, is Elizabeth Lawson. Liz Lawson. Her book is The Lucky Ones, which had its cover reveal this week. And I think she's doing it on Sunday, right? I'm supposed to be helping her.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, get twice in 1 week. This should be fun. Looking forward to it.
All right, Brenda. Uh-oh.
Still me? Oh, great.
Hold on, something happened. All right.
Okay. Hi, I'm Brenda Drake. I'm founder of Pitchwars, and I write young adult fiction. I'm going to be a young adult mentor this year with Kyle T. Cowan, and that's it.
Cool. Okay. All right, so welcome to the chat. We already have questions lined up. We're actually still on questions from 8:11 p.m., so hopefully we can get caught up a little bit. But just wanted to remind our mentors that we're not allowed to talk about wish list items. I feel like the wish list police lately, but yeah. So if we get any questions about that, I'm just gonna say they can't answer. Okay, so we have a question right off the bat. What qualities do you look for in a mentee? And anyone who wants to jump in, feel free to, answer. No one?
I'll jump in. I think the first thing I'm going to look for is somebody who's positively pragmatic. This is not an easy industry. Breaking into it isn't easy. Sustaining a career isn't easy. So you have to be able to say, okay, I'm ready to do the work, and I'm going to try and stay positive about it the whole way. Like, if we got to rip out a whole bunch of stuff to make it work and to make it a better book, like, okay, let's go get it. Let's go do it.
I'm trying to be polite and let Rebecca and Jeff go first. So Jeff, please go ahead.
I think Brenda just assigned Jeff to answer the question. You're muted, Jeff.
There we go. I said I was just waiting for you since you're the expert. That's a good question. I'm sure I will have to think about all these because I don't know the answers. It's the first time I'm doing this. If I forgot to mention in the intro. Yeah, I mean, building up what Rebecca said, somebody who's not just going to be stubborn about what they're looking or what the edits are, because I think the thing you quickly realize is that we don't the whatever mentor you get isn't going to be the end all be all, and so you want to have someone who you want the polar opposites, right? You don't want somebody who's not going to be open to criticism, but you don't want somebody who's going to roll over in everything you say, because I think that in those lively discussions about why things are the way that they are is where you like everything you're going to find the way to go with whether it's a scene or a character arc or even just a line. I think the rule that I had when I was doing this with Alicia was just I would as a base rule accept everything she said, and then there were things I'd push back on, and I would make a little list, and then if sometimes she would hear me out and be that's a good that's cool, I agree. And the ones that if a second time she was no, you got we should change it, then I would do what she said, because she knew more than me. So yeah, it's just I think it's yeah, you don't want to roll over, but you got to be open to what your mentor has to say. How do, Brenda?
Okay, you did great.
Thank you. I just want your approval.
So I was going to say, other than someone that will drink gin late at night with me and do revision sprints, all of what Rebecca said and what Jeff said, I want someone that has a good attitude, someone that really wants to work hard but has fun while working hard, because I'm a hard worker and I like to work hard, and Pitch Wars is about working hard and getting your manuscript to the best it can be, and you have to have an open mind and an open heart to get it done, I guess. And Jen.
Brenda, is your husband still in the room with you? I saw him earlier.
I think you scared him away again.
Oh, no.
He may come back.
When she was waiting in the wings, he was working behind her.
We have a dual desk, so it's like a two-person desk, and we work together. He does a lot of work, and so I write and he does his work. So
yeah, we see him on video chats a lot. All right. Next question is from Morgan. Hey everyone, is 14 too young for a young adult protagonist?
that the age of freshman? I actually don't know. I thought it was, is it 15 when someone becomes a freshman?
Yeah, a 14-year-old could be a freshman.
Okay. Then yeah, I mean, it's like, I always like kind of assumed it was like high school or going into high school. I don't know. Do you guys disagree, Rebecca, Brenda?
So I don't personally, I don't think so, but this is sort of a sore spot because there's this weird no man's land between middle grade and YA, and like 14 is that protagonist where they would probably push you to either make them older or push them down to 13 so they could be more middle grade. I don't agree with it. I think that there is sort of a gap in what we have for kids who are maybe not ready for some of the stuff that's in YA, but grown out of middle grade. However, from a market standpoint right now, you would probably see some push from an agent or from an editor to take it one direction or the other. Like new adult, kind of. It's sort of a weird, what do we do with this?
Yeah, I think one thing a lot of people don't know about young adult and middle grade fiction is most of the readers are reading 2 years up. So they want to read protagonists that are 2 years older than them. So if you have a 14-year-old protagonist, your core audience there is 12-year-olds, which is in the middle grade market, but then they're too old for middle grade. So it's like, it is a tough spot. Brenda, you have anything to add?
No, I completely agree with Rebecca, and I get that pushback with my editors all the time. Like I'm always having to try to age up my characters. So it is not something that we personally think about. It's what the editors and what market is doing. So we have no choice on that.
We have a question from Ricky. What if your story is in dual point of view? Should we let the mentors know? I know that it says it says the first chapter. I have a character's point of view that starts in chapter 3. Should we mention that? Yeah, so I think this is going to be an easy answer, but I'll let you guys answer it.
You can let them know in the query. So you need to make sure that you have that in your query. You need to represent all your point of views within your query. Anybody else?
Isn't there there's like a little paragraph at the bottom where you can just like say like so and so is a like multi point of view like YA fantasy, right? It's just like it's a 1-line ad.
Yeah, you can just put it's like it's a dual POV, young adult, whatever. Your query should also reflect it though. If you have 2 equal narrators, the paragraphs should be, you should have a paragraph about one and a paragraph about the other, kind of describing their personal stakes. So I would just make sure that your query reflects it too. Make sure that it reflects not just one main character, but both of them.
Yeah, a great resource for trying to figure out how to write a dual POV query is to look at romance back cover copy, because it's pretty much the same structure is what you're going to want to do. All right, Caroline has a question. Can you talk a little bit about your revision process? What works for you?
Can we say crying? Crying works.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to say gin, because I am drinking gin tonight. So.
Brenda's stock answer.
Yeah, that's my stock answer. So anyone else can answer if you guys want to start. Rebecca?
Yeah. I usually, the first thing I do is start with the revision list, and whether that's because I talked to my agent and she came back with thoughts, or a critique partner, I go through after I've cried and after I've rejected everything that they said in the edit letter because it's all wrong and the novel's perfect. I go through and I make a revision list of first the big picture stuff and then the little picture stuff. And I do it all by hand and try to brainstorm out what I'm going to do before I go into the document and tackle it. I'm a big lister. I'm a big plotter. So it's all got to be like extremely organized for me. I don't tend to go in and just kind of feel it out. I'm like, I'm going to make a game plan.
I think doing a cold read is helpful. So like you get your edit letter and you just kind of read it through with the notes and sit on it for maybe like a day or two, and then come back. And what I do is I've got because I write in Scrivener, and so I've got Scrivener open on one screen and then like the Word doc on the other, and that way it's that old like trick they said about using Comic Sans to like look at it in a different font. And so like I then, like, similar to Rebecca, does it look like I'm pointing at you and I go like that? Are we the same boxes? Okay.
Yeah.
When I talk to Rebecca, yeah, you start with the big stuff, and then like I mean, I always like, you know, knock off all the little like grammar things, so get like the real small stuff out of the way, and then try to rebound the big parts. And like I find having it on multiple like ways to look at it makes it easier, just so you can, like, you know, maybe it reads one way in one font and the other. I don't know. It's a weird left brain, right brain thing. And then I start chapter 1 and just like go through it, even with the big things, because I mean, what I find is that like it just if it's going to be affected early on, then it's going to have to be reckoned with later. And so if I start with the big scene that's, you know, 65% of the way in, and then when I go back to deal with the big stuff at the jump, it can be a little tricky. And so I don't write linearly. It's funny, but I try to edit that way when I go through it later on, just because so much of it affects later, you know, stuff at the end.
So I think, is the question about how we edit our own work or how we're going to edit their work? I didn't know.
I think it's about how you edit your own work. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I pretty much do the same as Rebecca too. You start with your developmental edits, and then you go into line edits, and then, you know, smaller edits, and just clean up and make your everything tighter and look for ways to deepen your point of view. And then, you know, one more read through and correct errors and stuff. That's about all I do.
Yeah, and I do want to point out, like, I've done a lot of writing conferences and I've seen this question asked a lot of different ways. I feel like no one's ever answered it exactly the same. So everyone's process is like slightly different. And so just because something works for one person doesn't mean it's necessarily going to work for you. My revision process is like weird, and I don't know anyone who does it like me, but I do like a different round of edits for each thing. So like I do a different round of edits where I'm focusing on the B-ply, I do a different round of edits where I'm focusing, like if there's, you know, something that I want to develop more, a relationship, or, you know, some kind of like thread that I want to thread in. Every round is just like for one small thing, which is really time consuming.
So I do have like a edit graph that has it's kind of like J.K. Rowling's. Have you ever seen hers, where she has series going through her books? And so like you're able to follow and make sure that you're bringing up those same threads throughout your manuscript. So I follow that throughout.
All right. We have a question from Alice. So this is kind of the question Brenda was asking. As a mentor and when you were a mentee, how did you provide/receive feedback and advice during pitch wars? How many revisions did you go through? What makes a mentor-mentee relationship work?
That's a lot of questions right there. I'm sure I'm gonna forget one of them. So for when as a mentor, because we provide like an editing letter up front after the 2 weeks. So you'll do developmental edits. And then once you get through that, we'll read through it again, doing line edits. And hopefully we'll have another time to read through it and correct additional errors should there be any. So that's how we work, or how I work with either whatever co-mentor I'm working with at the time. So we do several read-throughs and make sure that we get it as tight as possible and cover any kind of threads that are broken, or any kind of plot issues or character developmental issues, things like that. I don't know. I can't even remember the rest of the question though. I think that's for them, anyone that was maybe Jeff, because he was a mentee. So
Jeff, you're muted again. I definitely saw that word.
I don't know what you're talking about. We write YA. That's not a word in YA. Can I see? Can we see it again, just so I can get the mentee part of it?
Oh yeah.
Was there a?
How did you receive feedback and
Right.
advice?
So I think what Alicia did at first, she sent me, like, right from the jump, she sent me just like a long email with like 10 or 11 bullet points, and was like, before I even get, like, you know, send you the actual manuscript back with notes in it, just like jump in on these kind of like overall things. When it, and you know, they were like pretty simple stuff, and then that was just like, cut this isn't working, you know, just full stop. And then, you know, Alicia also isn't, like, you know, she's an editor IRL at Lake Union. I think she was at St. Martin's, and I was at Lake Union. And so she just like was really fast. And I hope that Liz and I can be similar, but I think she gave me like 3 or, God, Alicia's the best. Everyone should go get her book. Yeah, she gave me like 3 or 4. We went through it like 3 or 4 times. A couple just to get some of the big issues cleared up, and then we did one that was like a little smaller, and that's when we got into like, is this line working or not, or are these things kind of like, you know, self-defeating in terms of like drawing, because, you know, you're trying to appeal to agents, and like, you know, there's certain like flourishes you can do that, like, even if they don't end up making it or whatever, like, people will notice, and other things that are just taking away from, at least this was our discussions. And so like, and at the end, and towards the very end, I think it was like a week out, she made a sort of like kind of big, she was like, I really think we should make this big change. And it was a little stressful, because actually I feel like we had a pretty easy process, and like, because back then it was 2 months, right? And now it's 3. Then we switched the schedule.
It was 2 months every year until last year. It was 4 months, which we decided was too long, so it's 3 months this year.
Okay, so we did.
It's because Sarah's kind of putting the hatchet down on that.
Okay. Well, I think it was like 7 weeks of like again, she was incredible, and it was like pretty like straightforward, and like I felt like pretty good, and I wasn't too stressed. And then like a week out, she was like, actually, you know what? Like, we're gonna make this big switch. And it got a little. It was fine, but I remember actually the night of like that they put all the Y entries up, like sitting at my computer, like as things were happening, and she was like, get it out like AS. She was like, it was the night I think that we were supposed to send them, and she was like, no matter what it is, just like get it. She was like, by like midnight tonight, you have to send something. Like, don't do the. I mean, like, everyone's gonna be different, and we'll get to that part later. But it's just like, it was but again, I was like, it was great, and she was the choice was right, and it's still in the book, and like, it's yeah. So everyone's gonna be different. I know there were some people that were stressed from the beginning and like always felt like they were underwater, and then for me it happened, 7 days before the agent round. But it was like, everything worked out, so that's great.
Rebecca? Yeah.
I don't know that it's been a long time since I was a mentor. I was a mentor the last time in 2012, the OG year, the original year of pitchwars. So it's been a long time since I've done this. But I don't think that I would, like, the ideal is that the first round is going to be the big picture. And then however much time they need to take, I want them to take it. And if all we get done is the developmental big picture stuff, I feel like we've taken the manuscript to the next level. Ideally, we get in a line edit. I love line edits. I am a grammar girl, but the big picture, the big developmental stuff, like, what can we do to take this idea that I'm equally in love with and just shove it over the line and try to make it even better?
Yeah. All right. Next question from Carrie. My manuscript's protagonist is in her early 20s most of the book. My main characters range in age from late teens to mid 20s. Would I fall in new adult or young adult? I feel like that's a really easy answer. Early 20s is just not young adult. So either new adult or adult. Okay. No one has anything to add? We have a fun question. What do you wish you knew when you first started writing?
I'm just going to say one thing, patience, because I had none, and knowing to really be able to listen to critique, like take critique better, I think.
Jeff?
You got one, Rebecca? I'm still going through my mental Rolodex.
I would say way back when I first started writing, my idea of being a writer was sitting in a cabin in the woods, in the mountains, all by myself, and just typing up manuscripts and sending them to New York and having it be published. And if I could go back to my 15-year-old self, I would say that's madness. You need other writers. And you cannot do this and avoid and really make it, because this is just such an amazing, but also completely like gonna hit all of your anxiety points industry, because there's waiting and there's rushing and there's not knowing a lot of stuff, and you need that community. So 15-year-old Becca, don't go. You're not going to be able to do that. Also, it's all email, and you'll probably not have Wi-Fi up there. So
I think for me, probably like the expected word counts of genres, because my original draft of the book that will come out was like 150,000 words, and I like wrote a lot of it by hand, and it was just mostly like I didn't know anything. I wasn't really Googling like queries or specific stuff about the genre. I knew I wanted to write YA, but I didn't know I didn't know how long any of the books that I was reading were. So yeah, word count, and that's pretty important, because my book will end up being half that length, 75,000 words ish, and so yeah, it makes it hard. It makes it hard to query too if you don't if you're overshooting it, because even if people like the first couple pages, they see that like number and it's just intimidating. So I the first draft I say like go long, or write though however you want it to be, and then you can edit later, which is true, but it's still helpful to keep in the back of your head how long things are kind of supposed to be, just so you don't have to do a crazy amount of like cutting or adding later. Yeah.
Great. My degree is in mechanical engineering, so maybe not when I first started writing, but like before I first started writing, I wish that I had realized that like even if your degree or your background is in something else, you can still be a writer. Because I feel like it took me a long time to just like, why am I waiting? What am I waiting for? Let's just do this, But then I have an obsessive personality, so when I first got interested in publishing, I like learned as much as humanly possible about it. And so that's the one thing I always tell new writers is learn as much as you can about the industry before you start like making a fool of yourself. Not that you do, but you could.
Huh.
All right, Nikita. Not sure if you've already answered this. My book features a teenage protagonist, but it deals with a number of adult issues. What would determine whether it should be marketed as young adult or adult? I do wish, Nikita, you had mentioned which adult issues you're talking about, because I feel like a lot of times people say things are adult issues when a lot of teens are dealing with them. So,
well, I think I have a good answer for this one, if that's cool with everyone. Yeah, because actually I've had this discussion with my agent and my editor a couple times, because I'm of the opinion that like if it features a character who falls the age range, then like kids should be reading about it, because in theory that means they could be experiencing that thing. Like I fully believe, and bear with me, that like half of the book It by Stephen King should be considered YA, because it's about middle schoolers, and like it's really like horrifying, and like the adult half should not be. And I read that too young, but and I know not everyone won't agree with me, and that's okay. The answer they've given me, which I've sort of seen, not entirely, is that it's like if the book is written with a sense of like nostalgia more than it would be if it was written from like a teen, or a teen who's going through something, that's the kind of like overarching thing that determines whether it's a book about like a YA book or a book about teens for adults. Because otherwise, like, yeah, it's kind of what Sarah was saying, that like, I don't, with the issues that people say, like, this is an adult issue, but it's like, I don't know. It's like, if it's a situation that could happen to a teenager, then like, I kind of think that they should be able to read about it. But I don't know if everyone agrees. So I hope I haven't, Liz told me not to mess up and make sure no one would reply to us. And so like, if I'm offending anybody, I'm really sorry.
Is Liz watching?
No, she's at dinner with all her friends drinking and stuff. Thanks a lot, Liz. This is great. Yeah.
No pressure.
I don't disagree with what Jeff said at all. I think it's the first thing they're going to look at is the age of the protagonist. And I think that the other thing is, the thing that really stands out about YA is the sense of emotional immediacy. And that's because I get called out of that a lot. Because I don't do that well, and it's something I continually work on. But there's a sense of like here and now, and all of the feelings are super close to the surface because they are when you're a teenager. So I think I agree. I think it's not as much content as it is the age and how close you are to it.
Yeah,
I completely agree with you, Jeff, too, and Rebecca. It's also how the teen handles it. Like an adult is going to handle a situation different than a teen is going to handle it, but they both can have the same situation happen to them. So,
yeah, I think the clear marker in young adult is the filter, whether it's filtered through, the eyes of a teen or filtered through the eyes of an adult looking back on their teenage years. Okay, Stephanie asks, can you submit a manuscript if you have sent queries out for it, or is it best to submit a different manuscript? So I will just say you are allowed to submit stuff that you have queried, but yeah. I will let the mentors answer.
Yeah, I know. I was going to ask if either you were mentees. I know, obviously, Brenda was not. Rebecca, were you a mentee? Yeah, I don't know. I had 2 out. Or I had a couple fulls out, and I just sent the people emails. And actually, one of them, an agent, this was actually really nice of him. He told us, who knows, but he said he was preparing an R&R, and so like he actually sent us. Wow, it's been a while. I forget all this. He sent us like this big email with like a bunch of notes that like we incorporated into Alicia's edit letter. So yeah, just like when it happens, just send out messages letting them know. And at this point, it's like pitchwars is big enough that people are gonna like be like, oh, like cool, like it's only gonna help. They understand that, and there's also just like they'll also understand, like, there's a little cachet involved, and so like that, like it'll like it'll like boost your thing when it comes a few months later. So yeah, I don't feel free to send it anyway.
and I agree with that too, because I do tell mentees or people that are submitting that if you have a query out, once you enter pitchwars, you can withdraw that query. You can also tell the agent that you are accepted in pitchwars, and they will wait for that manuscript. They'll want to see it again too. So it doesn't hurt to ask and mention that you made it into pitchwars.
Yeah, some mentors do ask for query history when they're asking questions and considering a manuscript. But so if you queried like every agent in the business, that's obviously going to be a bit of a turnoff. But if you've, are partially way through, not so much. Rebecca?
Good job, crew. Got that one.
Did we talk about word count? I feel like I've talked about word count on every chat, but did we talk about word count yet?
Just a little bit with Jeff.
A little bit? Okay.
Like, look it up, please, for your sake.
So
you have a link you have a post on word count. Can you just link it to them for them?
Well, so Lee tweeted it out yesterday on the Pitchwars account. So if you go and look at yesterday's tweets from Lee, you can see it there. Oh, sorry, wrong. There we go. But if you go to my website, sarahnicolas.com, and you go to the right side, there's a resources for writers list, and the first link in that is a post on accepted or generally accepted word counts in different genres. So Sarah had asked, can I hear about word count? Was the turn on and offs for mentors? We spent so much time the last couple of days talking about word counts that I don't want to rehash all that again. but just make sure you know, and if you're like very much outside of the range, you may have to do some revisions. All right, so Sarah again asked, my story deals heavily with mental health. We did talk about this a little bit a couple minutes ago. I'm worried about this being too much for YA. Can I have some advice for this? It's some dark stuff, but I'm passionate about shedding light on this topic. And I do want to point out Challenger Deep by Neil Shusterman won like every award the year that it came out, and it's very deep into mental health. So I think there's your answer, but
I'm all for advocating for stories like that. I suffer panic disorder, and I think a lot of authors suffer from some sort of anxiety or depression or other mental health issues. And I think it's great. I think put it out there and let's get more awareness out.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I don't think she should worry about it being too dark for YA. I think there's some very good and important YAs out there that deal with dark issues. And like we've said on here, if kids are dealing with it, then why shouldn't we write about it so that they have the opportunity to not feel so alone?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, yeah.
cool.
Just no, yeah, no one's gonna. I don't think anyone's gonna X out. Just for that.
Yeah.
Jeff's just like, same. Question from Chelsea. What strikes you the most in the first 10 pages? My novel eases in as opposed to starting in the middle of the action, and I sometimes worry that pushes people off. Also, feelings on prologues. Brenda has strong feelings about prologues.
Okay, let's not trash talk prologues.
I'm going to let Rebecca take this.
We're not going to trash talk prologues here. If you don't like prologues, just maybe skip a few pages into my book when it comes out. I think I am not like in media res is the thing that people get caught up on. Like, I need to start in the middle of the action, and it gets misconstrued as you have to start with a big action. And I don't think that that's the case. I think you need to start where everything starts to change. You don't start at the Hunger Games. You start in her village and you see the stakes, and then everything changes like 2 chapters later. So you don't necessarily need to be in the middle of the big event. You just need to not set it 10 years before the big event occurs. Personally, I'm looking more for voice and language. That is what's going to carry me through. Voice language, I read a lot of science fiction and fantasy, so voice language world for me, but that's going to be bigger for me than like, I'm running from something and everything's terrible. Like, that doesn't need to be happening in the first page.
Yeah, I mean, this might be more of like a. I feel like these happen more in like fantasy, and I could be wrong. I don't know. This isn't my area of expertise, but what I will say is that like I think when you're submitting stuff to agents and then to pitchwars, like there's obviously like formats people expect in terms of like the font shoes and like the way it's supposed to look, but like when it comes to prologues, like you can just kind of lie, like just like turn it into the first chapter, like get rid of it. You know what I mean? Like that's something that I know in your head you're like, this is the prologue and it sets up this later, but it's just like I think for even in my like entry that we ended up putting up, we like right now in my book, it is, I guess there's like a long joke in my book that opens it, which you can go look up if you look at my mentee page. It's like it's like a 150 word 2-sentence joke that like is the prologue, but we just like put it in the first chapter, and then like later we moved it back. It's just like, you know what I mean? It's just like because yeah, there's like rules about like we want to see like 1 chapter, we want to see like 5 pages, and if you like do this whole thing of like putting them like in bold letters like prologue, and then like they kind of there's like an expectation with that. And it's just like I think it's easy if you just kind of this is a thing where I think you can fib a little bit with the understanding it later. It can change, but then again, I know that might be different in like I've read fantasy books where like it is a different scene with a different point of view from like a year in the future, which is different. But yeah, I think when it comes to this format, you can kind of get away with tweaking it to suit the aesthetic that you need for pitch wars or querying. I don't know.
I want to say that I'm not a hater of prologues, just FYI, Rebecca. No, just saying. And I totally agree with what Rebecca said about action. When people say start in action, they don't mean start with a big action blow up scene. It's in action, like you're in your daily life, but it's an actiony type of daily life, not one where you're sitting there just slurping a bowl of soup or something. So it's more of something that's going to draw people in, not something that's going to make people yawn. As far as prologues go, if you have a prologue, I would prefer to see the first chapter, because sometimes prologues are in different point of views, and I would like to see the actual point of view of what the story is going to be, so that I can make a decision if that voice is going to connect with me, because that's what I look for, is voice and writing in that first chapter. And prologues sometimes are a little different than what the actual chapter is going to be.
Sorry, I had to unmute. So there's one thing I wanted to mention. I'm getting some messages sent to me by some of our committee members, and I just want to make a general statement that if you are a bigot, if you're a racist, if you don't like the fact that we have international mentors, we don't want you in pitch wars. So there is someone, trolling on the hashtag. So don't feed the trolls. Don't give them the attention that they want. But if you do feel that way, then there's no place for you in our organization. So
and that's happening now.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yep. So no, thank you.
That person has issues.
Yeah. So we're just going to keep on answering the questions that people are asking. Oh, someone's saying good question. Oh, this is just funny. Can you guys do a Brady Bunch intro and talk to each other from your own cube?
That's what I've been trying. Yeah, I know.
We're kind of doing that, like, oh.
Every time I go to point the wrong way, and then I'm like,
yeah.
Do you know that my family has 3 kids from my mom and 3 kids from my stepdad? So we're just like,
You are a Brady Bunch.
The Brady Bunch. Look at that. I know.
You guys should do a chat like this. Okay.
It'd be a mess.
Except for it doesn't accept 6, does it? How many
6 total.
It's fun. We can cut my brother.
Yeah.
Okay.
Some people have to share squares. Brittany asks, when you don't have a lot of a professional writing experience to listen to query, but you do have a really good following on social media or an author newsletter, is that helpful to list instead? Brittany, I did notice earlier she has a considerable YouTube following, so I saw that.
Yeah, sorry.
Well,
go ahead.
I just want to say that, like, I have social media now, and you can follow me. But at the time that I was applying to pitch wars, broadly there was some legal stuff, and I didn't have any social media, and so it was a running joke with Alicia and I that I was like, she thought I was like secretly a 45-year-old mom in Oklahoma, because we didn't have any pictures up. I didn't have any. And I only found out about pitch wars because I had a burner account, except it was my only account, so it was just my Twitter that I never tweeted from, and just followed some writing stuff. And that's how I found out about it. But I had nothing. So if you have nothing, I also want to make clear that that's not deterrent, because it wasn't for me. Yeah, I don't know if there's how you feel the rest of you guys about
that. The question was, should she put that in her bio? Yes, she should put that in her bio. You should put, as far as if you belong to any writing groups such as RWA or SCBWI, things like that should go in your bio, so that it can show that you are a serious writer and you belong to groups, and that you do have a big following on social media. If it's substantial, you don't have to have a following on social media as Jeff was saying, but it can help. Rebecca?
Yeah, I mean, I think especially if it's an applicable group, if it's an applicable audience, if if you've got a substantial social media following for like, I don't know, like painting hobby and nothing about your book has to do with painting, that's might not translate. But like if it's an author newsletter and you're writing a book that is going to hit this audience and you've already got the audience, then yeah, I mean, I don't see why you shouldn't put that in there. But yeah, like Jess said, a lot of people don't have much of a bio when they go out querying. They're just like, I wrote this book and I live in such and such state, and that's it. And that's totally fine too.
Yeah, I did not have a bio at all when I was querying back in the day.
Yeah, I think if you're writing fiction, it just doesn't, it's not hugely important to have any kind of background, because what they care about is the book itself.
Right.
Okay, Jamie asked, what is your funniest pitchwars story that you are comfortable telling on YouTube? Does anyone have any funny? I feel like most of the ones I have, like, I can't share in public.
I was going to be like, well, no.
I guess we could share the one with RWA when I was in Orlando and the site just totally crashed.
Oh God, that was so stressful.
And I was at a conference with Sarah, and I was freaking out in the hotel room, and I couldn't get a hold of anybody. That was funny. At the time, I think I was a nervous wreck, wasn't I? It was crazy.
Oh yeah, you were super stressed out, and I was like, "Come on, Brenda, let's just go drink."
Hence, I bought way too many bottles of wine that she ended up taking home with her because there was no way we could drink them all.
That's good. Yeah, I don't have really any, like, we laugh a lot. I feel like, especially me and Brenda and Kelly, we have our board of directors chat. We're constantly laughing in there, but I think it's just like nothing.
I'll say this: the inside jokes that you share with your mentor are a lot of fun. That said, they stay that way probably, just because one makes sense out of context. So I don't really have any.
All right. We have a question.
Wait a second, Rebecca, you don't have anything funny at all from
Brenda,
2012?
It was so long.
Years ago.
It was a long time ago.
Nothing.
No, I can't hardly remember what I was doing anything 7 years ago.
I was just putting you on the spot. I did meet you at a bar.
You're being mean to me because I'm coming back.
Yeah.
All right, we have a question from Jennifer. When considering a mentee, do you research your submitters to help out, feel out the potential relationship? Sorry, I can't read. Before choosing, i.e., looking them up on social media, checking out their tweets and posts?
Absolutely. That's what I'm going to say. Absolutely. I'm going to be working with you for 3 months. I don't want someone that's on, like the guy or person that's on our hashtag right now being an ass. That's just how it is. I want someone that's going to be working hard and that is a good person, and that I can see that they're not going to be, that they have the same values as I do.
Yeah, absolutely agreed. Like I don't care about like trivial stuff, like you like DCU better than MCU. I don't care, but I'm gonna look you up to make sure you're not I'm gonna make sure to make you not a D-bag. I'm not gonna work with that person. I want to make sure that you're not a homophobe, a transphobe, a bigot, any of the phobes. They're all off. And I want to make sure that you seem like an okay person. So yeah, I absolutely look everybody up pretty much wherever I can find them. Sorry to stalk, but you're going to be in my inbox, man.
Yeah, I think what some people worry about when they ask this question is if we care, like, how many followers they have, or if they know any cool people. I don't think anybody cares about that.
No.
But but we do care if you just seem like a miserable person.
We just look for red flags.
Yeah.
That's what we're looking for is red flags. We don't care like if you like something different rock band or than us, or like Rebecca was saying, just red flags.
Oh, hey, there's a funny story. Back in 2012, the mentee that I ended up picking ended up living 45 minutes away from me, and we still hang now. It's Sarah Henning, by the way.
Oh, wow.
she's super, like, she's all published and stuff now.
Yeah.
She got cool way before I did, but yeah.
She's the author of Sea Witch.
She's Sea Witch and just came out with Sea Witch Rising. And she has Throw Like a Girl coming out and The Princess Will Save You, which is a gender flipped Princess Bride. So I know she got way cooler, way faster than I did.
I think you're cool.
Oh, thanks, Brittany.
All right. Brittany has a question. When you're sifting through so many pitchwar submissions or are torn between 2 or 3, what is usually the deciding factor that helps you pick your mentee?
Go, Brenda. Jeff and I are babies at this.
Yes.
I think it's really depends on which manuscript talks to me the most, the one that I really want to work with that excites me the most. And I know that you said torn between 3. I will probably set them aside and go and walk and let it sit in. And then the one that I keep thinking about is the one that I know I'm supposed to be working with, because one will always rise to the top.
I'm just taking notes about what Brenda said.
Well, I fully expect that I will like one and Liz will like one, and then we will have to figure out some sort of competition to see whose we go with. That's a joke. I'm kidding. We'll figure it out. I don't know. Yeah, I think that sounds good. That sounds good.
Yeah.
We'll sit on it for a while and come back to it. And
I do keep forgetting that I have a co-mentor that I'll probably have to like talk.
consult with. Yeah.
Yeah. Talk
I
to.
think, but to your point, like that sounds, you have a couple that you're like thinking about, and then if you put them aside for a while, it's whichever one you're still thinking about in days in between, whichever one has that like, it's like on 30 Rock when they talk about like having the third heat. It's just like, yeah, whichever one has the it factor.
And it's happened to me when I've had, like, usually I'm picking up manuscripts to mentor that another mentor had to leave the contest or whatever, and I have to pick it up or whatever. But when I've been in the application process where I'm picking, there's usually about 5 or 6 of them that I'm torn about. It's not like a lot, and then I'm having to sit aside and think about them. So.
So I'm trying to find the next question because I'm seeing some like comments aren't questions.
What are they saying? Are they making fun of me?
Yeah. Well, actually, Kelly Garrett messaged me and said it looks like Jeff's floating.
Looks like I'm floating.
Because you're so like high.
Oh, I think it's also a standing desk, and so it's like I'm not sitting. Am I part of it? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, question from Sarah again. Do you care how old the mentee is?
Nope. I don't know.
No, I don't think so. Is there a minimum age requirement for pitchwars?
Actually, no, but we do require anyone who's below the age of 18 has to have parent permission to enter.
Gotcha.
And we do kind of like double verify that. Hey, there's Brenda's husband.
Everybody say hi to my husband.
Hi.
Hi.
Yeah, so you can enter if you're a teen, but you have to have parent permission to enter.
Yeah, I don't care about age.
I don't even think about age at all, other than what.
That's fine. We can answer questions quick because we have a couple to get through before the end of this. Is it okay if I don't drink gin or at all? Yes, it's 100% fine.
I don't know. That might be a red mark for you.
Brenda's joking.
As long as you drink water.
Yeah, I'm joking.
As long as you drink water.
This is my first.
It's hot girl summer, man. You gotta stay hydrated.
I'm acting as if I'm like a lush. This is like my first drink in a month or something. So I'm just teasing.
Yeah, Brenda teases a lot. Brittany said, a lot of people say making friends during pitch wars is a great part of the experience, which I love. What are the best ways to do this? Is it mostly on the Ask Mentor chats and chats like these? So a lot of time, I will say, just to start off, a lot of time when we're talking about making friends, you can't make friends with mentors, but a lot of it is making friends with the other people who are planning to submit that year too.
Yeah. On the pitchwars hashtag would be where I would suggest finding the community. We didn't have Ask Mentor chats back in my day, but
You were like a poor girl there.
I did the contest circuit a lot in 2012, and I'm still connected to a lot of those authors, and that was all on the actual contest hashtag that we talked about. Somebody would post and we would reply, and that's how we became a network. So I would say, yeah, just get on the hashtag and like honestly and enthusiastically connect as a person, not like I'm trying to build a network. Like if you see somebody cool on the hashtag, you're like, I would like to talk to that person in real life or on the internet, then do so. But it's definitely you're trying to build friends, not a business network that just happens to work both in publishing.
Yeah.
Participating in PW prompts is good. And if you respond to people's posts and say, oh, this is great, I love this, you start building a conversation between people that you don't know, and you start liking their posts or whatever they're tweeting, and you just start that way by, building them up, like favoriting their tweets and just talking to them saying, oh, this is great. You did this great. I like this. Jeff should know. What did you do, Jeff? Or no, you said you weren't even on social media.
I was a ghost. Yeah. I had to
Jeff has nothing.
Because even in the group, I didn't have a Facebook. So like even after it started and we had the mentee group, I couldn't be in that either. I was in it, but like I couldn't post. So, yeah, I'm probably not the guy. Yeah, I mean now you have to go on the hashtag, and like I remember last year when like the new there was 2018 pitch wars, like I would go on the hashtag and like talk to people that way.
Just comment, just build them up, see someone you like.
Because I think like it can sound it probably seems intimidating, especially if people already know each other. But like no one's gonna like say like you can't sit here. It's like we read about high school, but no one's in high school anymore. You'd hope that they're not pulling Regina George and being like you can't sit with us. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah, and even if they are, then there are like thousands of other people that you can be friends with, and you probably don't want to.
Yeah, we sound like moms now. We're like, if they don't like you, then you don't need to.
Yeah. Also, I do want to throw a shout out for the forums. So the forums were pretty active last year, and they're just starting to pick up steam this year. And so if you're not sure where to find that, you can go to our website, pitchwars.org, and on the community tab in the drop down there, it will say forum, and will take you straight to it. And there are a lot of like peer-to-peer critiques that happen in the forums as well, which is a great way to make friends, is by helping other people. Okay, so we are out of time, so I'm gonna ask each of the mentors to say where you can find them online. And also, if you have something you want to tell us about, like a book coming out or a giveaway coming up or anything like that you want people to know about. Rebecca?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram are where I'm most active. Twitter, I am Call Me Bex, Becks. Instagram is Becca Coffindaffer because Call Me Bex was taken by somebody else. And yeah, you can find my book coming up fall 2020, the space opera called Crown Chasers. And you can find it on Goodreads and you can add it. And hopefully I start getting some cool stuff and getting to show a little bit more about that book coming up. I'm really excited about it.
Brenda?
I'm excited about your book too. You can find me at Brenda Drake on Twitter. My website is brendadrake.com and Instagram is at Brenda Drake Author. Annalise Rising released in January. That's all I got.
Jeff?
I am on Twitter. It's the Jeff Bishop. Instagram, it's more fun. It's JeffCab4Cutie with like a 4, number 4. Yeah, that's my handle. And my website is jeffbishopbooks.com. I think it's new. Clearly, and I think there's a pre-order link now for a heavy dose. Here we go. Ready? A heavy dose of Allison Tandy, and it's on Goodreads and all the fun stuff. Yeah.
Cool. And I am Sarah Nicolas. You can find me on Twitter at Sarah_Nicolas and on Instagram at President Sarah. And I just want to thank the mentors for joining us tonight. And I'm going to
Thank you,
ahead.
Sarah.
Yeah,
Thank
thanks
you
for
Thank
hosting.
for hosting us. This is great.
Thank you,
I'm
Sarah.
going to go ahead and put the upcoming chat schedule on the screen while everyone exits the chat. All right, thank you everyone for joining us tonight. Make sure you join us in the coming up chats we have on the screen right now. Even if something is not within your category, we still have quite a bit of good advice, even if it's not specific to your category. So I recommend you check out as many of the chats as you can. If you want to check out the past chats, or if you just want a one-stop shop to go to see all the chats, you can go to this link right here, bit.ly/pitchwarslive, and that is a playlist of all the Pitch Wars mentor chats, and we're going to add each one as it comes up. So thank you again for joining us, and have a good night.